and welcome. My name's Maureen St. Germain, and welcome to Living Your Best 5D Life. My guest today is Alex Marcoux, a brilliant, phenomenal healer and transformative visionary. She is a multi-award-winning author of visionary fiction and spirituality books. She considers herself a truth seeker and has always sought truths hidden from humanity and woven them into her work, whether writing suspense or spiritual books. Since 2011, she's been on a journey learning about the sacred mysteries and the magic of autism and its relationship to humanity's spiritual evolution. Many of these truths are Marcoux's Gods in the Game, Destination New Earth, and Unsuspected Heroes, a visionary fiction novel. Marcoux has 7 books to date. So allow me to welcome Alex and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Maureen. I really appreciate this invitation. Love to be included in the summit.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got where you are and whatever you want to share with our audience to help them know who you are.
Okay. Well, I think I'm probably pretty much like most people that would be watching this. I'm a seeker of truth. I'm on the path. I've been on the path for about 30 years. I learned very young something about truth. The truth has resonance, and when somebody's telling us truth, it rings true. And when it doesn't, when it's not true, it kind of falls flat. And I at some point I went through a spiritual awakening back in the 90s, and so I've been on this path for a few decades. And during the 90s, some of those truths that I was told as a child started coming back. Or actually, I should say, some of those things that I was told were truth that didn't have that resonance, they came back. And I became really intrigued after going through this spiritual awakening about how I can seek out those truths. So what I started doing is I learned that I was supposed to start writing books. I wasn't a writer. I started writing fiction, and I would take those things to me that I wanted to learn more about, because as a child, the nuns in my parochial school told me that, there were no aliens that walked among us, or there weren't, oh no, there's no such thing as past lives and reincarnation, and the soul can't travel. So those are things that I was very interested in exploring. And so I started writing these novels that were visionary fiction, and they morphed into spirituality books. So if you ask me what I do, I seek out truths to reveal them in my work to help heal the planet. That's my work.
Now, your last 3 books involved sacred autism. How did you get involved in that? And please tell us, what does that mean?
Well, okay, so back in 2011, I was just getting my synchronicity book ready to get published. And and a couple reached out to me, a mother-daughter team. Their names were Gail Lee and Lyrica Marquez. And both of them are autistic. Now, the mom was high functioning, you might consider her on the Asperger's syndrome, on the Asperger's side, but Lyrica was nonverbal. She was low functioning. She was considered on the high end of the spectrum. And they reached out to me, and they oddly asked me if I would do a book trailer for them. Now, that's odd because I don't do book trailers for anyone except for myself. And at the same time, I had just been laid off. So I went back to them and I said, well, send me your book. Let me read it, and I'll see if I can put together a trailer. And So they did. They sent me the book. And I'll tell you a couple things that happened when I got that book. The first thing, I started reading it, and that truth resonance just rang true, right? I started reading it and I was like, my God, this stuff is real. And the book is about a nonverbal autistic girl who's here to help with this consciousness shift. And so I would read this book every evening, and then I would go into my meditation time. And there was this one evening that was very meaningful to me. I was reading my book, and I decided to get into my meditation. So I took the book and I put it on my bed. I had a meditation area in the corner of my room. I closed the door to my room. I sat down in my chair. I lit my candle. I went into meditation with the intention of trying to figure out what I should be doing for work. I mean, after all, I was still unemployed. So I started meditating, and about 10 minutes into this meditation, I heard this loud crash. And I opened my eyes, and at my feet was their book, which somehow came across the room and landed in front of my feet. And
Wow.
at that point, I knew that, well, yeah, I had to do the trailer, but more importantly, I realized what a big role these autistics were going to have in my life. And so Gail and Lyrica, they brought me into their fold, and they introduced me to other autistics and their parents and their families and their friends. And at some point, the mom, Gail, asked if I would write their story. And I said no. I had work I was working on that I thought was more important, but the universe had other ideas, because shortly after that, it became obvious that I was supposed to work on their book. So,
Now, before you go on, I
yeah,
want you to and talk about the synchronicity of the day that you got this invitation from me, because you hinted at this beforehand, and I know you're into the synchronicity thing, and you were writing a book on synchronicity at the time when the autism subject matter came up. And
yeah.
so it's kind of all weaved together. So let's hear that.
I want to defer that. I'll tell you why, Maureen. I want to tell that story, but I
Okay.
want to introduce a couple characters.
Okay.
And one of them is Daniel. So I've worked with 3 of these nonverbal autistics, and one of them is Daniel. And Daniel has become a really big role in my last 2 books.
Okay.
And so Daniel is also a nonverbal autistic. My last 2 books, and let me just show you. So they asked me if I would write their story. And after denying them, I said, well, listen, when the truth is stranger than fiction, and it is, it's better to tell it in a novel. And so that's what I did. And I'm just going to hold this up for everyone to see. I'm hoping it's not backwards, because it's on backwards on my screen. Is it backwards on yours?
No, it's
Yep.
perfect.
Okay, so this is the Unsuspected Heroes, and it's a tale of these 3 autists that I've worked with, and it introduces what these autistics are doing for this consciousness shift. And so, and after this, and since 2020, I've had 3 books released, and the first was the Unsuspected Heroes, and the next is Destination New Earth. And just this last few months, God's in the Game. Now, all 3 of them talk about the role of the autistics. In a lesser degree in the last 2 books. However, their information, the autistics' information, are in the books. The messages that they're bringing into the planet are in the books. And Daniel as well as his mother, Connie, as well as a woman by the name of Shauna Kalicki, were instrumental in, all those last two books, as well as The Unsuspected Heroes. Would you like me to share more about Sacred Autism and who they are?
You wanted to introduce those characters, and then so I would like to ask some questions.
Sure.
I am quite familiar with this concept of the autistics holding so much light and transforming the planet and helping to maintain the balance in a very high way. And this has come through the records in many cases with my clients and my readings. But if Daniel is nonverbal, how does he communicate with you?
Oh, excellent. Well, first of all, Daniel, the way Daniel communicates is in many ways. First, through facilitated communication, and that is like a supported typing process where a facilitator actually sits with him and helps him type. And you might say, well, why would that be? Why would you need to have him help him type? You have to understand who Daniel is. He is this high vibrational being with an expanded consciousness. He is in a body, it's physical. But he's lightly tethered to it. He is multidimensional, having multidimensional experiences all the time. So the facilitator helps ground him so that he can communicate through facilitated communication. Now, but that's training wheels. The facilitator would be more interested, of course, and I should say the autistic would be more interested in communicating through a psychic or through telepathy. Or for example, on Destination New Earth, he was channeled through Shauna Kalicki. So that's how a lot of the information we have are coming in. How does he communicate with me? Not very well, because my telepathy and my psychic ability, they're there, but they're not my talents, right? I have my other skill sets. And so I work with two other people besides Daniel. One is Connie. Connie is Daniel's mother, and she's the one who really gets a lot of the communication done, as well as Shauna. So that's how we would communicate with him.
So let's talk about the consciousness shift that has become very evident and apparent to you through the very interesting way the information has come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consider it ascension or consciousness shift? How would you label it?
That's the question of the hour, it seems. Essentially, the way I look at it is it is a consciousness shift. And it has to do a lot with why we're here and how Source came into form and the reason it came in. And essentially, we came in to forget who we are, to remember, and then choose what are we going to do with it, right? And so that alone is a consciousness shift, to have that self-realization that we are Source. We're an expression of Source. So that would be what I would call a consciousness shift. Now, in our work, we not only talk with the autists, and when I say the autists, I'm talking about Daniel, and we talk with Mother Mary, the Ascended Master, from the 12th dimension. We also talk with a collective from the 16th dimension called Syrian. And we talk with Daniel. Now, what makes us unique is Daniel has access to all the dimensions. So all those perspectives, Mother Mary, Syrian, Daniel, they're all different. But they all, they're different, but they're similar. So, and I know you asked about ascension versus the consciousness shift. Syrian will say it's a evolutionary path. It's, we are here to, this is our evolution. And Mother Mary agrees with that. She also says that we're going to have ascension points, opportunities to experience upgraded energies, and these will happen repeatedly. And then Daniel, he will say, well, he wants us to be open. And he'll say, there are people going through the consciousness shift who may have an ascension experience where they will essentially leave the planet. They will die, their physicality will die, and they will leave the planet. But that's not why the majority of the people are here. We are here to experience that consciousness shift. And he's asking us to even consider that consciousness shift is a type of ascension rather than the ascension. But it's a type of ascension where no one's going anyplace. We're going to be right here in the physical, and essentially remembering who we are.
You know, in my 3 books on 5D, I say almost identical things. I also say that there are 3 Earths. One Earth is what I will call a crash and burn Earth. That's where people will die. Another version of the Earth is those who are, quote, ascending, and they're choosing to move into a higher consciousness expression of themselves, so they don't need to die to get there. And then third version is what my guys have called the do-over. And the do-over is those people who are literally going through consciousness shift step by step by step, instead of like leaping into a higher awareness. And it's interesting to me because I too have been told that the individual is here to consciously co-create and to, I'll be very simplified and say, to expand the database, and that consciousness itself could not experience these things unless consciousness separated itself from itself and then denied that it was part of source, so that you could reclaim that and in the process add to the database.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. And I just love that we get similar information. We use different language.
Right.
And I think collaborating talking and collaborating like this helps my light bulb go off. And you're right, essentially the information we're seeing is, most, I can't say the majority, a lot of the people on the planet will not experience the collective shift in consciousness. That's not why they're here. It's not their job.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no drama. And one of the tests for those who are transforming is to love those people anyway, and to not worry about them or judge them.
And beautiful.
And that's a big ask. And because consciousness, in the way people have been raised in modern Western world, is that the way we determine who we are is we get agreement from others. And now what we're being told is, no, the agreement is coming from up high, it's coming from within, and that's your validation. So it's been more amazing and fabulous that these books that you have created truly allow us to conceptualize and to believe it is not only true, it's possible. Because a lot of people say, oh yeah, well, that's probably true for some people. But when I'm sure that the way you bring people in, it makes it in front of them, oh yeah, that's possible. So it changes the way people look. Now, in your book, you mentioned the light team. What is the light team?
Okay. Well, okay. So, you hear a lot about a lot of groups working on this ascension or the shift in consciousness. You might hear of the light workers, the Wayshowers, the star seeds, the
Mm-hmm.
Reef children, indigo, so on and so forth. You might hear embodied ascended masters, embodied aliens. I mean, there are all these groups working on what I call stabilization of the 5D.
Mm.
And then there are some that aren't working on stabilization of the 5D, but the light team, the way I put it is the light team are all those members that are here, and they don't have to self-identify. They don't have to identify as being a light worker or a way show or any of that, but they're on a path. They feel like they're here and they feel like they're part of something and they're here to do something, and they are. So that's the light team.
That's awesome. In one of my books, I was given the term Wayshowers. And when I was asking about, I was asking actually about someone who was in my life, and this man would always call me as soon as I get home. The phone would ring and I'd pick it up. And this is before everybody had cell phones. And he'd say, "Did you just get home?" And I'd say yes. And then he'd say, "Well, we should meet for dinner or lunch or something." He's not my lover. He wasn't anybody special. He was kind of a boring guy, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked in meditation who this person was. And I was told that he was one of the protectors or one of the guardians. Another name, a different category, but like Wayshowers, it's
Mm-hmm.
a it's a it's a title or a caption that allows people to understand. And when I was told he was one of the guardians and he was there as one of my guardians, I was so ashamed because I realized they had been rather casual about just friendship and rather, not particularly responsive when he would
Mm-hmm.
want to spend time or,
Mm-hmm.
he was always on all my trips and stuff like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the way showers kept coming up as those who were called to show a way, even when they didn't know that they were a way shower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's lovely to hear that term again. And again, that synchronicity thing comes back.
Well,
So,
yeah, I'm sorry, just to add to the synchronicity, the very first, after my spiritual awakening, I got into a group at the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment. I studied there, the psychic development, and the name of the group is the Wayshowers.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have a big connection with the area as well. And I was very involved with the area in New York City, and I was on their board for a while before they closed their center. So is now a good time to tell the coincidence story about the day you got your invitation?
Oh, sure. So Daniel blogs on my website as well as Shauna, and Daniel's blog is called Daniel's Corner. And so
Wait. Stop. It's called what?
Daniel's Corner, that would be a category of my blog. If you go into my website and you go to the blog, one of
Okay,
the
Daniel's
categories, and
Corner.
they're only blogs by Daniel and Daniel's
Okay.
Corner. And so the morning that before you emailed me, I received an email from Connie, and she said, "Here's Daniel's latest blog. It's a rant on human consciousness." Like, what? And so I read it, and he was a little upset. He was frustrated, and he said that the spiritual community, and particularly many of the spiritual leaders, are so closed. They're not open to looking at the work of other spiritual leaders. And he was sharing how that is a disservice to humanity, how it's not only going to hurt the spiritual leader, in their awakening, it's going to hurt all their followers. And so when you get into the blog, essentially the picture is, he goes, it's think of it as a puzzle. And let's say it's a 100-piece puzzle, and each spiritual leader has a piece of the puzzle. Daniel says not one of these spiritual leaders see the bigger picture. They don't know the bigger picture. And he only encourages that the spiritual community, as well as the spiritual leaders, be open to the other ideas. And, my experience hasn't been that some are very open to our books, our way of thinking. And so when you, Maureen, reached out and asked if I would be interested in collaborating on this 5D, it was like, you got the memo.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I have always felt that way, the way Daniel described it. I was just one part of the puzzle. And I've always felt that my job wasn't to be a teacher of information, but to help people remember who they really are, and help people remember things that they already knew. And so many people do write me back and say, I knew what you wrote, but I've never spoken it, or I've never thought it the way you expressed it. But I knew what you said, and I knew, it's kind of like, I could have written that kind of phrase, which is quite fun. And then when 2011 happened, 2012 rather, and there was this whole thing at Chichen Itza, and there was a big shift. And one of the things that Hun Batsman said was that the women would be the new leaders, and that women would take over. And in my talk that I was preparing at that event, I was told to announce that you can't believe spiritual teachers. And I thought that was hilarious, because I fully expected the audience to look at me and just burst out laughing, because here I am, a spiritual teacher, saying, you can't believe spiritual teachers. And then I said, and that includes me. And I didn't get the kind of reaction I was expecting. And so I'll say it again. For those of you who are listening, I hope you're laughing by now, because it's true. You cannot believe us anymore. You must do your own work. You must develop your own wisdom channel, and you must find a way to be able to validate what you're hearing. And it is also true that each of us have a piece of the puzzle, and that you need all of us to work together, and you'll be drawn to various teachers along the way. And part of my work is to expose people like you and the work that you're doing, because it is so far ahead of the curve. It is absolutely amazing. I'm good friends with a woman who has a daughter that communicates in her hand, and they worked out an alphabet that way, her autistic daughter. And again, a phenomenal being, who is giving remarkable information like the people you're working with. And I am so jazzed to be able to share not only your story, but Daniel's story, and the unsuspecting heroes. And so please, for the benefit of everyone here, tell us where they can get your books, maybe show them again, and a little bit more about your work, whatever you'd like to share. And if you have any gifts for our people, I'm excited about that too.
Sure. Well, first, our books are available. I say particularly on the last two books, because it really has been a
Collaboration.
Co-creation. It really is been a co-creation. Our books are available, of course, on Amazon, as well as most major online booksellers. But I always say, hey, go to your independent bookstore, and chances are they won't have them. But ask them to bring it in. Just ask them to bring it in, because they are distributed by Ingram Sparks, so they should be able to get into any spiritual bookstore. So my website is my name. It's Alex Marcoux. That's spelled ALEX Marcoux, MARCOUX.com. What I would encourage you to do, if you're interested in learning, because right now the information coming in, Maureen, you know this, is just so off the chart. It's coming in all the time right now. And so Daniel is very active blogging. Shauna is blogging. I blog. And so I would say come to the website, go on the bottom of the website. There's a place for you to sign up for a newsletter. But more importantly, you know, when I say sign up for these things, I'm not asking you to follow us in any way. When I suggest that you learn more if you're called to, it's really important right now that we not follow anyone so closely that we miss going inside, like Maureen mentioned, because that's where the magic's going to happen. That is where the shift in consciousness is going to be. It starts within. And remember that your outside world is a reflection of your inside world. It's not the other way around. So that would be, I guess I probably went a little long, but
Well,
I
it's
want,
okay.
yeah, just want to thank everyone for, you know, being here and doing your work, because you really matter. People's awakening is so important right now for this consciousness shift.
I really want to thank you for participating in this interview. And I want to thank Daniel for his rant that kind of said, yeah, baby, let's do this. I am so grateful for your time and your energy and the work you are doing. It's magic. So
Thank
thank
you.
you all for listening and staying with us. I'm so happy you were able to join us.
Thank you, Maureen.